Steve, you're all set to begin at the top of the hour.
Yes.
Steve, we're all set to begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As chair of the commission, I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order. This is a Zoom webinar and is being live streamed to Facebook and YouTube. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different platform than they are currently using, please visit our social media at Redistricting to find the link for either viewing on YouTube. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. We have ASL interpretation available for this meeting. If you are a member of the public watching who would like easier viewing options for the ASL interpreter on your screen, please email us at redistricting@michigan.gov and we will provide you with additional viewing options. This meeting is being recorded and will be available at redistrictingmich.org, michigan.org for viewing at a later date. This meeting is also being transcribed and those transcriptions will be made available and posted on redistrictingmichigan.org along with written public comments. Members of the media who may have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Tracy Weimer, Media Relations Director at the Department of State. Members of the media should have her contact information. At this time, I would like to have the Department of State staff to take the roll of the commissioners present. Sally, would you take the roll for us, please?
Yes, good afternoon. Commissioners, please unmute and say present when I call your name. Anthony Eade.
Present.
Brittany Kellum.
Present.
Cynthia Orton.
Present.
Doug Clark.
Present.
Dustin Witches.
Present.
Aaron Wagner.
Present.
Janice Villette.
Present.
Juanita Curry.
Present.
MC Rothhorn.
Present.
Rebecca Satella.
Present.
Rhonda Lang.
Present.
Richard Weiss.
Present.
And Steve Lett.
Present.
All commissioners are present.
All right, I have, everyone should have received a agenda. Has 8 items on it, including the adjournment at 3 o'clock. Are there any additional items that anyone would like to add at this time? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
MC will second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, the same sign. Okay. The minutes that we have been provided, we'll take, there are 3 of them, but we'll take the full agenda presentation on November 19th, 2020 from 9 to 2. If everybody's had an opportunity to look at those, if there are any corrections, we would entertain those at this time. The only one that I saw reading through it was under old business 2. Said motion by Chair Clark. I believe we should note that's Commissioner Clark. With that correction, are there any others? MC.
It just occurred to me that he is chair of one of the subcommittees, so I don't know that it's inappropriate.
I don't know that it's inappropriate, but it's more
Maybe clear.
to be commissioner.
I'm not against it.
We'll refer to him as chair on his minutes. I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I move to accept.
Except,
I
moved by
second it.
Vanessa. Okay, and all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, the same sign. We also have minutes from the Executive Director Committee, I believe, Doug Clark, MC Rothhorn, and Richard Weiss.
General counsel.
Yeah, that's the general counsel.
General Counsel one, okay. are there any, the three gentlemen, are there any corrections that you saw in those? Okay, excuse me. Or from anybody else, are there any questions? If not, we entertain a motion to accept those as presented.
I'll move that.
MP
So
moves,
moved. Mhm.
Yeah, I second it.
Doug seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, the same sign. On to the last advisory committee for communications and outreach. That committee is Juanita Curry, Cynthia Orton, and Janice Villette. Ladies, are there any corrections that need to be made to your minutes?
There is one correction on point 2. It refers to, just a minute, I can't see.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, having an issue. It refers to committee chair Clark. It should be committee chair Curry.
All right, we'll make that correction. Any other corrections?
I don't think so, no.
All right, any other questions from anybody? All right, we would entertain a motion to accept these as presented. Juanita, you want to make the motion?
I move to make a motion that we accept this as presented.
Any second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign? All right. Sally, I checked earlier to see if there was any public comment. You indicated you didn't think so at the time. Has that changed?
Nope.
All right. We're up to old business. Department of State update. Who's doing that?
Hello,
Right,
everyone.
it's Sally Marsh.
Thank you very much. I just, a couple of things really quick, and we can talk more about them later this week because I want to give you all time to discuss your agenda items at hand. But quickly on the compensation front, within the next few days, I expect the contract that Kelly Services has been working on to be final. They had to adjust some language. That's why it's taking extra long to make sure it is reflective of all of you. And then the process of hiring at that point should be fairly quick. You'll have to fill out an application and an I-9, and then you'll be able to receive compensation. So I'm looking, I'm kind of working closely with Kelly Services to try to get this done this week, or if not, very early next week, because I know it's been a long haul and I really appreciate all of your patience, but we seem to have rounded the corner. So that is moving forward, and I will keep you posted on kind of anything else later this week. And on computers, laptops. So the laptop you all agreed to purchase for all 13 of you actually is no longer carried by the state as of like right around the time when we had the discussion. So there's basically a replacement model that's the same, but with a refreshed, essentially the same, but with a refreshed CPU. It's still what our, the tech person who helps us procure devices for the Department of State would still recommend. So if that's fine with all of you, I can proceed with them obtaining those computers. And then expect more details later this week, but just to kind of give you a heads up, because they are state computers, you will have to do some extra steps to get them set up correctly within the state network. So more details to come, but it's looking like you might actually need to meet a representative from the state at, a Secretary of State branch office or some or other state network building so that you can get it properly set up, and that we have them all over the state, as you know. So I don't anticipate it will be a huge problem, but just to be aware, it will be a little more involved than getting your phones set up. And you should all have your phones at this point and be online with them. Let me know if there are any issues with that. I know there were a couple of hiccups, but I think we're set. So those were my kind of quick administrative updates.
All right, Rhonda.
Are the new computers that they're recommending relatively the same as far as price wise?
It's actually slightly cheaper. I should have mentioned that. It's the ones you were going forward with were about $1,200. These will come out to about $1,000. But like I said, it's called the instead of the, I think you got the, originally it was supposed to be the 5500. This is the 5510. So it's very similar. It's just newer is the sense I get.
And cheaper, so bonus.
Yeah.
Do we get our choice of color?
I think there's only one color available.
Same
I can
color,
ask.
same color as Henry Ford had, black.
That's my guess. I can ask.
All right. We would entertain a motion at this time to approve the substitution of the computer for the 5510 instead of the 5500. Rhonda.
Dustin had his hand up, Steve. I don't think you saw him.
Dustin.
I just had a general question in regards to compensation itself. Is the first one going to be backdated to when we actually started the first check?
So I've asked about whether that's possible. It sounds like they might have to do it not backdating, but maybe paying an upfront sum for the time that you would have been on payroll and then moving forward. So that's, I think something like that will be possible, but I'm still trying to work out the details with Kelly Services. They have restrictions based on, their own internal processes. So I'm trying to work with them to figure that out.
Then you also mentioned that it's I-9 and W-9, so assuming we're 1099 contractors, state, I suppose.
I would say, so we'll have sort of the detailed documentation within the next several days. So I don't want to off the cuff tell you something that's actually not correct for how they're planning on putting you within the system.
Okay. Any other questions regarding any of that? Okay, we're back to making a motion to accept the substitute computer.
So moved.
Rhonda moved. Who second?
I
second.
We need a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, the same sign. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Sally, do you know if they're going to send around another purchase order that I'm going to sign?
Yes, they will.
Okay, I will look for it. Okay. Executive Director Candidate discussion. We're back to where we left off at our last meeting. For the Executive Director, we had narrowed it down and interviewed people. And Brittany, are you good to coordinate our discussion on this, or?
Yeah, I am.
Take it.
So not much disclaimer and preface, guys, but I think this is a good moment where we can flesh out some of the things that we discussed last meeting and some of our initial thoughts, and kind of come together in this space to discuss the candidates for the executive director position that we had the pleasure of interviewing. So I don't have, let me see. if we have, our first candidate was Brandon Bryce, and I'm open to how you all want to approach this in terms of like going down the list, or we could either take the approach that we had the last time, which is going around and everyone giving their maybe top two choices, but then of course discussing them at more length. But I also personally find the value of discussing each candidate, to be honest, and making it fair. And I see Rhonda is nodding her head. Dustin is nodding his head. Richard, do you have something to say?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, I think at the last meeting, all of us, I believe, except our chairman, didn't want to comment on the candidates because he wanted to read the emails, which I thought was a good idea. And I guess what my question was, and the reason I'm asking is because at the last meeting, everybody commented except Steve, and I kind of wrote down here little hash marks to the individuals that the commissioners liked. And I just wondered if Steve had come up with one or two or three of them that you liked.
I did, as a matter of fact. I went back and looked at their resumes. I looked at my notes, etc. And my pick would be Dr. Mitchell. I'd be happy to speak to that if we want to do it that way.
All right, then the only other thing I wanted to bring in here, since you have made your comment, I kept track. So the leading candidate had 8 votes. That was Susan Hammerschmidt. The next one would be Dr. Mitchell with 6, and then Brandon Bryce with 5. And then I think Juanita Phillips had 4. So if that's any indicator, as I said, some of us did 2 people. So obviously that adds up to like 21 or 22 votes. And I just thought I'd throw that out there quick, and maybe that might help narrow it down a little more, maybe not.
It does. The only thing that I would say is if, someone doesn't, you guys can't see me, you all can't see me doing the air quotes, but if someone doesn't make the cut, so to speak, I don't want anyone on the commission to think that their opinion of that candidate doesn't hold weight or it shouldn't be discussed because they weren't in the top votes. But Richard, I do agree that's extremely efficient. There's no need of us kind of going back and discussing. I think Rhonda had a hand, and Rebecca, I saw that you had a hand.
Yep.
Rhonda.
My thought was, since we had more time, that we would go through each candidate. I know the last time we met, we had 15 minutes. So we just threw out, I only threw out my top 1, just so everybody had enough time. But I think in all fairness, now that we got a little more time, maybe in some of them we can go through quicker. If we're in a consensus that some didn't really, do as well as what others did, we can go through them. But I think we do owe it to each one to at least go over theirs one more time. I've watched our interviews 3 times now, and I went back through resumes. So I found things that I didn't see the first time. So,
yeah. And then we got other information. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in fairness, I think that's my opinion.
We have 70 minutes. I think, right, Rebecca, I don't know if I'm going to say what you're about to say, but maybe then it makes most sense after kind of listening that we have the candidates that maybe are not in our top choices and maybe discuss that and then move on to a more lengthy discussion of the ones that we are more interested in. Rebecca, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to, I had done the same thing that Richard had done. Was taking a tally as people were giving off their names and had the same ranking that he did. So one, just to confirm that what he said was accurate, that I had the same tallies that he had.
Good, yeah.
And then also, I think that was exactly what I was going to say. Let's start with the ones who weren't on that high tally list and sort of see if anyone else wants to add any commentary on them. And then we can otherwise remove them from the list if that's what we want to do at this point. I think that's the most efficient way.
Okay, so let's get started. I think we raise our hands and, I call on whoever wants to speak, and then we'll move through the discussion that way. So if anyone wants to get started with, let's see. As I pull up the list, can someone give me, do you want to start with Brandon?
Brandon Bryce was first.
Okay.
But he
Yes,
was also
Dustin.
he was a front runner too. So the top three were Dr. Mitchell, Sue Ann, and Brandon. They were the top
Okay.
three. So I think you'd be
Janet or Jeanette.
Jeanette, Vicky, and Amna were kind of the bottom three.
Okay. Dustin, yes.
Are we just talking about Brandon currently?
Dustin, I think something's going on with your sound. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can talk louder.
Yeah,
that's better.
perfect.
That's better. Yeah.
We're talking about Brandon currently, correct?
No, we're going to talk about Amna or Amna. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. And Janet, and then Vicky. Those are the three that we're discussing currently.
Okay. All right.
Anthony, I'm sorry, I couldn't see your hand is raised, but I'll get to you after Dustin, okay?
So
okay.
I had a chance to look through all the public comment again in regards to Amna. As far as I'm concerned, she's out. That's just me, because of all the comment from multiple people coming through emails. She moved from number 4 to number 6 on my list. Her coming, saying, addressing the elephant in the room and saying all this stuff that one person said in regards to social media is compounded heavily with all the other emails from people that were not on social media, sending them to us saying, do not hire this individual because of her affiliation with one particular party, for the most part, not being able to work in a capacity with people on all sides of the political spectrum. That's my thought.
I think that's pretty well rounded, simply because we're in a unique position, even though, we're experts in our own right, but we have a higher responsibility to represent kind of this, the community, the folks that we're serving. And so I personally also agree and believe that we would be doing a disservice to disregard that level of pushback from the public. I want to be able to honor them. Again, we can't please everybody, but I think it is important for that trust to be there. And some of the comments didn't seem just to be like a personal matter. It seemed to be a little deeper than that. And I mean that respectfully. Rhonda?
I understand what Dustin's saying. And I actually went through, I've lost a lot of sleep about this one. I'm going to be honest with you all, not being able to talk outside of this. And I have to say that to an extent, I believe what she said. Just because a lot of people that sent us letters, I did my own investigation. Now, some of those I do believe were very sincere and thought out, but I do think there is an extent to politicalness to it. And I don't want, we had one letter from a lady who actually collected signatures for voters, not politicians, who highly recommends hers. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be emotional. I'm just like, I feel bad. I'm a very empathetic person, and I know that's my own downfall. With that being said, in all fairness, because I need to practice what I preach, and I preach public perception. And although I think that Amna could possibly be a wonderful candidate, she's had some great letters come in response to her also. They're not all negative, but I do need to practice what I preach. And I keep preaching to everybody on this commission that public perception plays a very big role. So with that said, I guess I agree that she, for this particular position, she probably, although I think she would do a wonderful job, I think I would have to pass on her also. And I'm trying not to get emotional, but I lost sleep over this one.
That's okay. I can understand why, Rhonda. It is, yeah, I get it. Doug?
Yes. I looked at Amna, and I think she's really got the solid background for this type of work, and based on her experience and so forth.
And again, the thing that bothered me were the emails that came in from the public. But there are a lot of positive ones and there are a lot of negative ones. So I looked through the negative ones, and the large majority of them, if you take a look at the date timestamp, they're all between 8 o'clock and like 8:40 on a certain evening. It's like they sat around the table and put this stuff together and then mailed it out. And that kind of turned me off to all the negative comments. You saw the same thing, MC? Yeah. But again, like Rhonda said, public perception, I think, is going to drive a lot of the things we do. And we've gotten public comments about that. I've seen, I got one this weekend from Tom McMillan, which I think was attached. And Tom pushes toward a independent type of approach toward any of these positions, executive director or general counsel or communications director. And then I saw one today that got mailed out or to us from Sally that indicates where they want us, they think we're taking too far of an approach toward that and think it should be more partisan, nonpartisan. So I mean, you can go either way with that, but I just get on this one. I just get uncomfortable with the number of emails from the public, both negative and positive. It's like, particularly the negative ones, because like I said, the majority of them came within this half-hour time frame or so. So I would say that given that, we want to try to avoid any controversy with the public.
Thank you, Doug. I'm going to get Anthony, and then MC, you're next.
Hey everyone, this is Anthony Eade speaking. So a couple of things. First, I think we would be better suited going with the original process that Brittany laid out. We have time to talk about all of the candidates, and I think talking about all of them might serve us better so that we each have a full grasp of each candidate. So with that said, I personally think we should go through, all 5 of them. And I really don't think it would take that much longer than what we're currently doing, because we all probably have pretty similar notes on each one. That's my first comment. To add to the discussion around Amna, can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Anthony,
Okay.
now we
Sorry
can.
about that. As to add to the discussion on Amna, I pretty much agree with what Doug just said. I mean, we have messages for and against her, and public perception is important. However, I'm not quite sure about how much of the public we're actually engaging with at this point. It's also possible that, we're engaging with a select few special interests that might be, quite a bit smaller than actually the will of the general public. So I just think we should keep that in mind.
Thank you, Anthony. I just want to say something really. Go, Rebecca, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I appreciate the concerns about the timing of the emails. That was something I noticed as well. But to me, I didn't just look at the emails. I also did some search on her. I looked up her campaign contributions. She did mention during the call that she had donated to one of her friends who was a Democrat previously, and that was because the woman was her friend. But every other campaign contribution she's made in Michigan was to Republicans. So I don't think she's being honest about her political affiliations. And the big thing that stuck with me, and I mentioned this during the last call, is if you look at the news reports from when the time she was last running for East Grand Rapids mayor, I believe it was, that 13 out of the 15 members of the boards who worked with her regularly, so the city council and then the school district, endorsed the person who was running against her. And so to me, and there were comments in some of the news articles at the time about her being a top-down manager and not being collaborative and not listening to people who are underneath her. And, you know, the fact that people who have worked with her before chose to endorse someone else, to me, that's a huge red flag. And then just on the last comment about perception, you know, my thought is when you're dealing with someone who's generating a lot of fire and you have other qualified candidates standing in the running, why would you consider picking that person over the other qualified candidates? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me for an independent body that we would consider going that way when we have other people who are very qualified, who are very preferred by other committee members.
Rebecca, you said exactly what I was going to say. The only thing that I would add is I agree, Rhonda, I'm very empathetic, but I did also see the same article that Rebecca is referring to. In fact, for all of the candidates, I went to their social media, I went everything that was available, and I did my own search. And there was also something, you know, my first love is not politics. My first love is people and understanding them. And there was something in the interview where I felt like, and I can't speak for her, but if I knew that I was coming into an interview with all of that, I would have tried to wow the panel. And I felt like there was a lot of focus on her trying to address the negative public comment, but in the way that was like placating us. I think she was being somewhat genuine, saying that we're doing a good job, but I'm just speaking frankly. I think there was dishonesty underneath that. And that's all I have to say about that one. MC.
All I want to acknowledge is that what we're doing now, I think is really important, that we're unpacking how we're making decisions, because I think this is exactly what we need to do. So I want to encourage each of us as commissioners to try to, as we go around, right, this is the transparency I think that the public needs. And I think I know it's difficult for each of us to be articulate all of the time. I just want to offer that this is, I think, where we need to try as much as possible to unpack how we made the decision, and this sort of what we're doing is I think exactly right. So I just want to say thank you and encourage us all to try to, when we have insights into how we made a decision or why we're choosing who we're choosing, I think we should try as best as we can to just say it. Check.
Thank you, MC. Steve.
I think the comments as to the qualifications of Amna are appropriate. I guess I would caution us to speak to the facts as we know them, or we can find them out. To attribute some ulterior motive to what she may or may not have said, I don't believe moves the ball forward. So that's my only caution. I mean, to say that I believe she was not being honest or she wasn't being this or being that, if we can simply limit our discussion to here's what we know, here's what we found out, here's what was said, then I think that's a better way to go. I don't vote for her either, by the way.
I agree.
I will quickly say I think it's beneficial because we don't know some of these people in real life, that all we have is the feel, and that is important because we'll be working with them. So if we feel someone is being dishonest, whether it's her or anyone else in an interview, then we likely will feel that along the way. And I know that some legal issues, et cetera, have been a concern on the commission. So I just want to raise that. Any other comments on Amna before we move on? Okay, let's move on to Jeanette. I always want to call her Jeanette. I apologize.
I think it is Jeanette.
Okay, Jeanette. Thank you. Thank you, MC. Oh, Dustin.
Jeanette's still my number one pick. The reason for it, I kind of sort of, well, I brought it up last time as well. As far as personality goes and how her interview went, it went extremely well. Her credentials are great, but the thing that stands out in my mind the absolute most is she went above and beyond to learn things, do things, set things in motion on her own, make a 60-day plan and all that fun stuff without being asked to do so. And when I mentioned that, I don't remember who exactly said it, but they said, that's something that we can ask everyone to do once we offer the job. The fact of the matter is we didn't have to. And that definitely stands out in a leadership type position that I feel very strongly about. And she was personable. She was nice. She answered all the questions honestly. Well, I don't want to say honestly, but with quite lengthy responses that were open. And I think she did very, 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 very well. And to me, proved that she would be an excellent candidate for this particular position.
Sorry, I was on mute. Was Cynthia first and then MC, then Doug, then Rhonda? Is that how it went? Somewhat? Okay. Well, it's okay. We're a flexible group. Go ahead.
Well, Jeanette was also my top person for all the same reasons that Dustin just said. I felt like she was highly qualified. I loved her energetic nature, and I thought her personality did really seem easy to work with. I felt like it would be a good addition to our commission as far as being our executive director. And just would also say that I did look at social media and all the other things that we could discover on our own, at least as far as what I could discover on all of them, and found nothing negative there for her.
Thank you. Anthony has his hand raised too, so I know we can't see him, but I want to get Anthony and then we'll go back to the original order. Anthony?
You can take the others first and come back to me.
Okay, MC.
Thanks. Jeanette connected with us over Zoom in a personal way like none of the other candidates did. There was an incredible personal connection. So I really want to acknowledge that that's not easy to do virtually. And I really felt seen and heard, and I felt like she acknowledged each of us and connected with us in ways that, yeah, like I said, I think the other candidates just weren't able to do it. She has a unique quality there. I want to offer that. And second, I think she was one of the few who did, like you said, Dustin, like she reached out, she did something above and beyond. But I also want to offer that caused concern for me, because I do think that, one of the things that I believe is that we need someone with a public servant kind of approach, someone who can get things done and move things through a government system in less than a year, who has ability to do chief of staff and run, so we need, let's say, executive director qualities, but I also want public servant, meaning I want them to sort of take direction from us and give us a variety of responses and ways that we can unpack it. And as a commission, wrestle with information and ultimately make decisions and then potentially give direction. What was concerning for me was that she did take that. So she didn't take direction. And again, there was no reason she should have. So there was a concern for me that there was a little bit of an ambition there. And again, because we had Dr. Cheryl Mitchell also give us something, just like the executive, or excuse me, that strategic plan, she also took it upon herself, Dr. Mitchell did, to sort of unpack and sort of give us a list of why she was the right candidate and unpack it in a way that for me looked at, so she was essentially helping me make a decision in a way that other candidates didn't. And again, I think Jeanette gave us a different approach, right? But also something additional. And and meaning additional written material. And because it was, again, my bias is looking at a public servant rather than at a corporate executive I want someone who's going to take our direction and understand that we each will have different meanings and different opinions. And it's really difficult as a board, right, as a commission, one commission, to sort of take direction from that. And I think only a public servant who's had like dozens of years in multiple formats can really rise to that challenge and do it right off the bat, and also lead people and have integrity, blah, blah, blah. So I guess what I'm suggesting is Jeanette also is high there, but I had a concern for the very reasons that you mentioned, Dustin, because I'm a little concerned about taking too much initiative or a little bit too ambitious. Check.
It was Doug and then Rhonda, and then if you all still have comments, and then Rebecca.
Yeah, this Doug. I just have a couple quick comments. I worked in the same company that one of the companies that Jeanette worked in. And when she talks about the project that she ran about, I believe it was voice communications switch over, those are not easy projects, particularly for when you're doing it in a large organization. So I think she needs a lot of credit for that, for doing that. To me, it's a big deal. I was involved in some projects too globally, and I don't know if hers was global or not, but it's a lot of coordination, and that's what we're looking for, somebody that can coordinate things. There's a heck of a lot of coordination. The other thing I'd like to say is that she appeared a little nervous to me when she was going through the discussion, a little hyper and nervous. And that kind of bothered me a little. I look for people that are a lot calmer doing business and so forth. So just wanted to make that comment. I'm good.
Thank you, Doug. That was appreciated. Rhonda and then Rebecca.
Kind of going off Doug's last comment about her seemed nervous or everything. That's actually what I wrote down in my notes, seems nervous. But then after that, I put, it reminds me of myself a lot. When I get excited about something, sometimes I have a tendency to rattle on. Sometimes I get emotional, but it doesn't mean that I'm not a good worker. So as far as that goes, she did seem really excited. So was it nervous or was it just excitement? Because as she said in her interview, she was looking for a new career, and this was the only job that she applied for. She saw others, but this was the one she wants. So maybe it was the excitement too, that she made it to that point to our list of interviews. I mean, I'm never going to count anybody out, because every time we have a Zoom meeting, I'm nervous. My heart pitter patters every meeting, and we've been together for months now. So as far as the nervousness, I think that's something that if she was nervous, she could overcome. I like the idea of how she talks, that she would support the commission. That's always an important thing. And I like that Steve asked that a lot too. Do you see yourself working with the commission, working for the commission? Are you a support, or are you leading us? So I appreciate those questions that were asked of that. As far as she goes, our last meeting, she wasn't on my top, but she was one of my top 3. So as far as rating goes, I would be happy with her also. She was my top 3. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Rhonda. Rebecca, and then Anthony, if you want to, I don't know.
Yeah,
Rebecca,
I'm just
yeah.
quickly, it's the same perception. So she was so energetic and so personable and so relatable, but I also felt like she was, I would say, prattling on, which is sort of from my Scottish heritage, a lot, and that concerned me a little bit, because I found it was a little distracting from the message she was trying to get across, and it made me question, is this person going to be efficient? But then the other part of me was like, well, it seems also like it's just nerves. So it was that ambiguity I had about what appeared to be nerves and sort of, not being efficient with responding to questions, that sort of made me put her as my number 3, because I felt, I was a little concerned about that, as well as other people have commented.
Rebecca, this is Brittany Kellum. I agree with what you said, and Steve might spank my hand later, but that's fine, because he doesn't want me to talk about the feel. But it's not about her. I think, you know, my top choices were Dr. Mitchell and my brain is moving slow today, you all. Suzanne. Okay, Suzanne, sorry. And
Sue-Ann, no Z.
Sue-Ann, sorry. I told you all I'm a little under the weather, so just please bear with me. I think we made such a big deal, rightfully so, about, you know, political affiliation and connections and contributions. And there were just some candidates that, to me, avoided those questions. They spent time talking around it. So I think it for me, it goes back to, if these were the standards in the interview, and if those things are important to us as a commission, and those are the things that we have to pay attention to. And as Rebecca said, it took her a while, even to the point where she was saying specific, she was not my top choice. I think that there are other qualified people that could represent, though, you know, we came in with a variety of experiences. I think we need to look for someone that is comfortable in, feels comfortable about navigating in that kind of space, and is going to be able to, you know, be strong and think clearly about it. I think she offered, you know, she has a wonderful experience, and I don't want to discredit the company and the project that she's worked on, but I just think that there are better choices for that. Anthony, are you ready to?
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to, you know, hear what everyone else had to say first, and kind of take notes on it. I mean, I like this candidate, you know, a lot. She is one of my top choices for most of the reasons that has already been said. You know, I didn't really get that she was nervous. I instead got that she was, you know, passionate and excited to start the job. You know, some direct quotes from her was that, you know, she wants to help us do the best job that we can. And she specifically also mentioned communities of interest, which was important to me. And I also agree with most of what Dustin had started off with, saying that, you know, this candidate, to me at least, seemed the most prepared, and who actually seemed like, you know, I guess it could be considered ambition, but I kind of looked at it more as, you know, being prepared and coming in with a good plan and a good strategy to help move us forward.
Any other thoughts? Juanita?
Yes, I was listening to each and every one of you all, and I kind of agree with everybody, but then I think that when we make our selection, that we go by really their qualifications. I know when people interview, some people probably are used to being before people and they could come off better. Some people may come off nervous. Some people may come off all kinds of different ways that might seem a little inadequate for the position. But I just think that we should kind of stick closely to their qualifications. A lot of people are nervous when they're on an interview, and a lot of people practice for an interview. So sometimes you can't tell one way or the other. You really got to go by their qualifications.
Thank you, Juanita. So do we move on to Vicky if no one else has anything to say? Okay. Yes, Rhonda. Rhonda, you're on mute. You're saying all sorts of great things.
Boy, you missed it. Now I forgot it. No, I was just gonna say, I'll get it going with Vicky. I thought she seemed very nice. You know, she talked about her service-related work history and what have you. I have nothing negative to say as far as her interview goes. My only opinion is that there were other resumes and applicants that were far more qualified. So that's really, I have nothing negative on her. Like I said, she did speak of some very good things, but she was in some pretty hefty competition as far as people's experiences and stuff. So I think there were just some that were a little more qualified than her.
Thank you, Rhonda. Cynthia?
I'll just second what Rhonda said.
That's appreciated. Rebecca and then MC?
I would add a third on that. I just didn't feel she was as experienced as other candidates.
Oh, MC is the fourth. He agrees. Doug agrees. Okay. Yeah, I would have to say the same. And so we've gotten Amna, we did Jeanette, we did Vicky. Do we want to talk about Sue-Ann? There's my justice. I did her name correctly. I'm a stickler on names. I hate when people mispronounce my name. So Sue-Ann. Yeah, Rhonda, get us started again.
Are you guys tired of me yet?
No.
I'm just raising my hand because Sue-Ann was my top pick. And I just, her experience, again, I go back to experience. 30 years in an executive director position. So she's got the experience that we're looking for. The fact, I know in our last meeting, there was some said about not the government experience and it being all on, you know, the other side. But I think with her experience with the United Way, I mean, the United Way, isn't that kind of their job to reach out to the community? So that in itself is something to look at, I think. And the fact, here we go back to this, and I know I keep going back to it over and over and over again. When we asked about political affiliation, she didn't have any. And she said with 30 years of being in the job that she is, where it's an outreach to all communities, you can't contribute, you know, you have to be impartial. And we've gotten a lot of public comment that said, if we're going to hire somebody, we should look at somebody that's independent and impartial. Well, if you have 30 years of experience with United Way and such in a position where you can't really have a political affiliation because it affects the amount of income you bring in for the company, then I think as far as the public comment goes and as public's perception, that she would be an excellent choice with that too. So I'm looking at in terms of experience, public perception. And when I said I wanted to interview the executive directors, I said that sometimes I just get a gut feeling about people. And she's one that I had that gut feeling about from the time I read her resume and then interviewing her. My opinion of her never swayed, and call it a gut, but I always go with my gut and it's not let me down yet. So I just think that she would definitely be a good one. And I think that she could work well with everybody on the commission. So that's my thoughts on her.
Thank you, Rhonda. MC?
I would echo what Rhonda said. It goes back to what we said about Vicky. I feel like Cheryl has over 30 years of experience in a government position. And because we are such a body that is so government based and we have 1 year, less than 12 months to sort of wrap up all that we're doing, and we have to, and this, our executive director, I believe is executive director, but really it's the name that I don't know will ever apply to anything else. Just like we are a commission that has never existed. Even, you know, we're in a state body, but we're really like, we're unique. And I think just like that, our executive director is totally unique. And so because Dr. Mitchell has both urban commission experience and urban Oakland governmental experience, and has worked with like Zoom meetings and setting up meetings as a city administrator, much like the executive director, and has also been in a rural area like in Albion, and has, again, like almost that same 30 years of experience. And because of all the additional information, written material that has helped me understand that she can help us as a commission, not just me, but us, I think, repackage and reformulate and help us potentially get to multiple places. I think she is above Sue-Ann for me because of those reasons. I'm giving you my reasons to try to help you understand why I'm choosing one over the other, because I agree with you, Rhonda. Like this, she could work for us. She could work for me. I totally agree. I just believe that Dr. Mitchell is one above, and I'll just offer that because of the additional information, all these, Sue Ann has their United Way and worked with a huge community, like a rural community, and did an unbelievable work, much like Jeanette. What I'm suggesting is because of the breadth of letters of recommendation from Dr. Mitchell, it demonstrates, written demonstration of the network her network in the community, and that they've rallied behind her in ways that I just I'm really impressed. What I mean to say is I think her network may be deep enough and in the community, like outside of government, and have the government experience that feels, again, like because we're under such time pressure and because we as a committee of 13 need to understand ourselves as commissioners, but then we also need our executive director to actually help not just us, but also the staff who are also going to be in unique positions and have to respond to us in ways. I think we need somebody who has this unusual qualifications. And I think Sue Ann could do it. I'm not disagreeing, but I just believe that we have a super unusually qualified person in Dr. Mitchell, and therefore I'll just leave it.
Thank you, MC. I saw Dustin's hand, then Cynthia, then Juanita.
So I'm going to start by saying that Sue Ann was number 1.1 on my list. It was basically a tie for everything that Rhonda was saying. And I'm just going to put this out there short and sweet. This is just my personal opinion. I personally don't want an executive director with 30 years of government experience. That's just my own personal, my own personal opinion, because we don't have it either. And I do believe that the fact that she has community outreach with United Way and other such places that are not government related, that is much better to me than the potential of having a sway because she has so much government experience. And that's just my personal opinion on the matter. So, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Dustin. Cynthia.
I just raised my hand because I just felt like our discussion of Sue Ann was kind of hijacked and we need to be talking about Sue Ann. I agree with what Rhonda and Dustin have said, and so I don't need to take up more time, but she also was like 1.5 for me, almost.
Thank you, Cynthia. Juanita and then Rebecca.
Yes, I was agreeing with MC that Cheryl Mitchell. In fact, I even changed my person from Bryce to Cheryl Mitchell, because after looking at her going over and over with all of the candidates, I examined Cheryl Mitchell's documents and everything, her resume and everything over and over, and she seemingly, to me, stood out more than just about all of them. And mind you, all of the candidates are they're superb. All of them are very, very good. And it's kind of hard to even decide, but I changed my opinion from Mr. Bryce to Dr. Cheryl Mitchell. I thought she was excellent when I finished reading her thing over and over. So I agree with MC.
Thank you, Juanita. You also reminded me that we didn't discuss Brandon Bryce. I don't think we did.
But I gave his name last time we
okay.
When we were doing that. I did that.
Rebecca.
He was my number one pick, yeah.
Yeah, I really liked Sue Ann. I really liked Dr. Mitchell. For Sue Ann, I felt that you're dealing with two people who are very qualified between her and Dr. Mitchell. And I was the one who raised this up before, is my only concern is, and this is something the committee needs to think about, Sue Ann has excellent experience in the nonprofit arena. Dr. Mitchell has excellent experience in the government arena. I don't know that nonprofit necessarily translates as easily as government experience does, because with government experience, you are dealing with different rules and regulations around open meetings and apportionments and how things are run. And so that was really, in my opinion, the only thing that was a negative factor for Sue Ann was just not having that government experience. Although the nonprofit experience she has is very impressive and she seems extremely competent and capable. So to me, it was really down to those two people, and that nonprofit versus government was really, to me, a key factor.
Thank you, Rebecca. I would have to agree with Rebecca and MC in terms of the analysis. Those Sue Ann was my 1.5. It was just a tie between the two, and what Rebecca said was that was a deciding factor between why I put Dr. Mitchell first and Sue Ann second, or just tie, whatever. Any other? Yep.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just want to apologize if it feels like I hijacked it. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It seems like there's no other comments. Oh, Juanita.
Well, I just want to say, I know that we hadn't discussed Mr. Bryce, but that was one of my first choices. He was my first choice, but that's why I mentioned him. But I just said after I read about her over and over and the rest of them, that she was my choice. I just want to clarify that.
And let me get Anthony. Let me get Anthony first. Sorry.
Sorry, I know it's kind of hard without the video. So thank you, Brittany, for looking out for the hand raise. Before I state my comments on Sue Ann, should I also state my comments on Dr. Mitchell, or are we going to come back to that at a later time?
We'll come back to Dr. Mitchell. Just say Sue. You can mention Sue Ann right now.
Okay, wonderful. Just wanted to be clear for everybody. So I guess I should preface by saying that, myself, along with Rhonda and Dustin, all three of us were on the subcommittee that narrowed it down to these 5 applicants. And I do strongly believe that any of these 5, especially the 4 of Brandon Bryce, Cheryl Mitchell, Jeanette Phillips, and Amna, I think any of those 4 really could get the job done. I am, however, a little less enthusiastic about Sue Ann, as some of the other comments I have heard. I have nothing negative to say about her. I think she has impeccable job experience. And I think if we were only going by strict job experience, she is objectively, she is the front runner. However, I also take in consideration on who I think could develop the best relationship between the commission and the executive director. That relationship is of importance to me. And when we asked Sue Ann that question, I didn't really hear as good of an answer as some of the other candidates. So like I said, I think she's great. I really don't have any objective negative things to say. And I think, if we do decide to pick her, she would be a great executive director. However, I have her just a tad lower than some of the others on our list.
Thank you, Anthony. Doug.
Let me pass. My comment was going to be on Brandon Bryce, and so I'll wait until we bring him up.
Okay. Well, without further ado, why don't we bring up Brandon now? Because I kind of went out of order. I just totally mistakenly skipped over his name. So we can talk about Brandon at this moment.
Oh, okay, great. Basically, I'd like to support what Juanita said. I took another look. He was number 2 on my list, and I dropped him down a notch. Basically, I didn't think he had the experience that some of the others had. And so that kind of drove me to that decision. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Doug. Rhonda.
As far as Brandon goes, I had him number 2 on my list. When we talk about people interacting well, he seemed confident. He seemed like somebody that you could approach easily, very easily. Almost somebody that you felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
Going back over his resume a little more also, I noticed a couple things that I didn't notice the first time. And not that they're huge things, but could be beneficial. And his skills, he says he's advanced in Spanish. So speaking Spanish, that could be a huge thing. And also American Sign Language. So, you know, a couple skills we didn't necessarily think about with the position, but something that could also be handy in the position, especially when we're reaching out to communities. I liked what he had to say about, you know, integrity, honesty. And I have to say, even though he's a Republican, he was very open and honest about that. He said his life is an open book. You want to look him up online, look him up online. He actually invited us to look him up online, in my opinion. So I like that direct approach. You know, he's not trying to hide anything. This is who I am. This is how I was raised. This is what you get. And I appreciate that. I really do, because it seems like in days you don't get so many people that seem so true and honest. And I just kind of felt that he would be a good fit. But like I said, he was my number 2. If he was considered, I do think he would do a good job. He may not have as much experience, but he does have just that hint of government experience, but then also a big hint of public experience. So, you know, it could just be just the right mix. And as far as public comment, I only saw one that came in other than a phone call, and I only saw one, and their only complaint really was that he's a Republican. So take it with a grain of salt. I didn't hear any that said, you know, that he, you know, the work that he's done. I haven't heard any saying that he does bad work or anything like that. So that's my opinion on Brandon.
Rhonda, any other opinions on Brandon? Oh, Rebecca.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on double mute. So my first concern with Brandon is I don't think the experience is there compared to Dr. Mitchell and compared to Sue Ann and compared to Jeanette. I just don't think the experience is there. He has some lower level director position, but experience, but not executive director experience where he's managed an organization. So that is a concern for me. The other concern for me, and I mentioned this before, is his affiliation with the Patriot radio station. It is a conservative Republican radio station. It has Sean Hannity on it. It's like a who's who of conservative radio. And maybe I missed it, but I don't remember him bringing that up at all during the interview. And I feel like he was sort of peddling himself as being kind of middle of the road. And, you know, I looked at his political contributions, and he has some Republican, some Democratic. But then I watched a bunch of his videos on the Patriot, and he clearly comes across as being a conservative Republican, which that's not disqualifying to me in and of itself. But the fact that he didn't disclose that affiliation, he didn't mention it to us, we're obviously going to find it if we look into it. And again, I'm concerned about the optics of how that looks to the public in general, that we have someone who you know, has that very strong affiliation, lots of public commentary out there about his views, and I'm just concerned about the optics of it. So to me, like, combine that with what I see as a lack of qualifications, or a lack of as strong of qualifications, to me, I wouldn't be able to vote in favor of him.
Thank you, Rebecca. Aaron, and then Dustin. And oh, wait a minute. Anthony, Aaron, and then Dustin.
Thank you, Brittany. Brandon Bryce is one of mine who are in, you know, my top 3. I agree with what Rebecca was saying about his experience. He does have a little less experience than Dr. Mitchell or Janet Phillips or Ms. Hammersmith, but I think he might be able to make up for that in different areas. I really like the actual things he spoke about. He spoke about voter integrity. He spoke about there being no safe districts. He spoke about bringing the power back to the people. These are direct quotes from him. And he specifically said he wants to make sure democracy stays afloat. So from that, I gather a lot about his, you know, about the reasons on why he's applying to this commission. And that was also reflected in his application. And those reasons, I think, can be just as important as the qualifications. As far as his background goes, I'm not quite as concerned. I think he was pretty upfront with us. He did not mention the radio station specifically, but like someone said earlier, he did invite all of us to take a look into his background to see what we can find. And, you know, he just came off as a pretty level-headed, genuine person that I do really think that we could work with. Yeah, that's about all I got.
Thank you, Anthony. Aaron, and then Dustin.
Brandon was one of my top picks as well. He said he wanted to he was interested in the position because it gave Michiganders the power. I disagree with Rebecca because he came right out and said he was a conservative Christian, and he may not have disclosed the Patriot radio show, but he did disclose what party and what his affiliations were. And he did mention that he has 14 years experience with both groups, and some of the issues that they worked on to pass were both bipartisan. So he was one of my top picks as well.
Thank you, Aaron. Dustin?
So Brandon also was in my top 3. Just because he was very personable and he did come out and say, you know, he was open and honest about his political beliefs and basically his entire life, quite frankly, with all of us. The fact that he was open enough to basically invite us to start looking for things, searching from online, also stands out. Going to experience, though, however, that's going to be my biggest thing is not as much as experience as the top 2 individuals here that I've picked. And then echoing on Rebecca itself, I actually subscribe to SiriusXM, and saying that Patriot Radio is just a conservative radio station is kind of far-fetched. They're kind of out there. That's my only personal opinion on that itself, and that could have negative connotation among the public, in, again, my opinion.
Thank you, Dustin. Any other last thoughts about Brandon? Okay, let's move on to talk about Dr. Cheryl Mitchell. I knew it was going to be you, right?
Nobody's raising their hands, so I'll get the ball rolling again. Dr. Mitchell, she does have a lot of experience. The only thing, and let me flip to it, I didn't feel that type of connection with her. I don't know what it was. I don't know, maybe in my opinion, I almost felt, and you can't judge a person over Zoom, I know, but you know, first impressions, she didn't seem like somebody that me personally that I would be totally comfortable approaching. You know, some people were a little more open and comforting, I guess. I don't know if that's the word. I don't always use the correct language, but and then, you know, something that stuck out to me, Brittany, is something that you had said about, I don't remember which other one it was, about not being so forthcoming about political affiliation. And I honestly don't think that she was all forthcoming. That was actually in my notes that we took the day we did it. She kind of hemmed and hawed and didn't say right away who she was affiliated with. She's like, well, this one party, but then doing this, we've got to be impartial. And I believe Steve actually, because I went back and rewatched it, Steve asked, so can you tell us what party that is? You know, so as far as that, and the political thing is not huge to me, you know, who's going to do a good job, but I keep pushing the public perception. And I feel like we're darned if we do and we darned if we don't, especially if they have a political affiliation. So experience, yes, she's got great experience. For me personally, I just didn't feel that connection with her. I don't know. I just felt that there were others that I would be more comfortable working with. And other than that, I mean, I have nothing really negative to say about her. I just feel that, in my opinion, there were other people that I would prefer over her.
Okay, thank you, Rhonda. Let's get Aaron and then Cynthia.
The only thing I had with Dr. Cheryl was that she stated she was currently full-time with her current position, and I didn't know how that would affect her availability to the commission with that. So that was the only thing I had.
Thank you, Cynthia. Then I'm going to bounce back to Rhonda.
Okay, so I kind of felt the same way that Rhonda explained. Just she does have good qualifications. I just didn't feel that it would be as good of a fit as some of the others. I also, the main thing I wrote down in my notes is that especially a couple of her answers seemed as if she was reading them. And I didn't get that with any of the others, but definitely on a couple of her answers, I felt like that. And I just felt like anyone can write and read the perfect answer, but I wanted to know how she really would work with us. So that was all I had to say.
Thank you, Cynthia. I appreciate that. Rhonda and MC.
I wanted to address Erin's comment about the full-time job, because in the interview, Erin, I did ask her that. I don't know if you recall. And she said she spoke to whoever it was, her boss or whoever, and if she could work part-time doing that and do this full-time, she'd be willing to. But if that isn't something that we would be willing to let her do, then she would be willing to give up her other job. I don't know if you remembered that from the interview, but I just wanted to let you know that I did ask that question. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Rhonda. MC.
Yeah, thanks, Rhonda, because that was one, I remember you answered that or asked that question. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I also did not, I noticed that I didn't connect with Cheryl Mitchell, like Brandon, he was the first one. I think Mitchell was the second one. And yeah, Brandon I connected with, and then right after Mitchell, it was, I think Jeanette. And I remember thinking like, yeah, it was noticeable. Here's the reason. What I mean is I went over and over in my head about that in particular. And what I mean to say is what I looked at was the written samples. Again, I'm trying to put myself in our shoes. I'm trying to understand how we as a commission might actually have a director who not only can support us, and again, I think fit and emotional feelings are valid and important and hard to quantify. So I guess I'll offer that that's also hard to justify and be transparent as we are. What I'm suggesting is because of her written samples, because there was a calm energy, and I think what I know is that this executive director is going to be a face and is going to be essentially helping lead staff in a rapid pace, right? There's going to be commission meetings that are held with public comment where we're going to need, to draw lines. And, we've already experienced how difficult it is to actually have all of our conversation and deliberate and make good decisions, thoughtful decisions, feels like instantaneous, and we can't talk, outside of it. So it feels like we need a director. For me, I was thinking, gosh, I think I may want a director who is a little bit slower, not slow in the sense of, I think she's quick, but I think she's a prepared public servant. And again, this is where my bias, I'm trying to, because I think it may actually serve us. And I just want to acknowledge, I feel like because of all of the things all the experience she has, and because it's live and because she's actually working right now, it's super live. Like she knows how to deal with the Open Meetings Act and FOIA and everything right now during COVID times. And it may be important for me to ask Sally, because I think the Secretary of State and whether the Secretary of State staff is going to continue on after we have our full-time staff may be important for us to acknowledge. But my hunch is that we're going to need an executive director who can actually, substitute I may be wrong there, but substitute for the Secretary of State because they may be going away, or be a support, but not actually our staff, right? Because we're the independent ones who choose. So I guess what I'm saying is it's that very deliberate kind of thoughtful approach that I feel like might serve each of us, even though it may not be as, yeah, let's say extroverted. And I want to acknowledge that I think that she tried. I remember I watched the interview again too, and she made a point of saying, I'm excited. And what I mean is I think it's a stretch for her. I don't think she's comfortable. I think she is maybe more introverted. Again, this is my feel. I don't know if that's true, but I think that she may be more introverted, and that may be exactly where she excels and why she did get as many letters of recommendation recently from as many people as possible. But because she may not just be she may not connect with people the same way. And again, my hunch is that we may want that. We as all of us. Check.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. Juanita?
Yes, I just want to say that that's what connected me with Mr. Bryce, the way that he came off so comfortable. I was comfortable with how he was talking and how he presented himself. I was not as comfortable with Cheryl, but I like her resume. I like the things that she did. And for me as an example, sometimes when we first meet people, we're not really ourselves. We try to come off professional. We're nervous. We're everything. And sometimes we have to just know one another till we really come off that little horse and just be ourselves and then still get the job done. So all this first appearance, the first talk, we don't know how it's going to go. We just try to go by their resumes, if they have the qualifications and whatever. I can't judge a book by the first time I see a person because sometimes they switch up on you, and we have to be aware we can't judge a book. So we need to try to stick to their experience and their resumes so we can kind of get, and then we can bring them down to our level once they get to know us, I believe.
Thank you, Juanita. We have maybe like 7, maybe 6 more minutes, I'll get Sally first.
Thanks, Brittany. Just wanted to jump in really quick on sort of 2 points. One that you were just getting to, Brittany, which is the time, and sort of wanted to say both that, you don't have to stick strictly to the sort of timeframe estimates that were in the agenda. If you'd like to continue your conversation on, you can do so. We do have the translators and closed captioners until 3:30 because we thought this might run late. So if you all want to take some extra time to continue your discussion, you absolutely can. What I would also say is that, and I think this sort of is stating the obvious, so forgive me, but you don't have to take a vote today. And in fact, a pretty normal part of these kinds of processes might be to do a final round of interviews or to ask them for additional materials or additional things to review and then make a decision, right? So I don't want anybody here to feel, I know you want to have your executive director, and absolutely, right? Like that would be fantastic for all of you. That said, don't want you all to feel like you need to take an up or down vote today and have that be the thing you go with. So just wanted to mention that point. And then to MC's sort of comment about the role of the Secretary of State in the future, I'd say 2 things. One, the Secretary of State, per the Constitution, is the secretary of your commission, must provide a technical assistance, maintain the public record, those sorts of secretarial duties. So the Department of State, the Secretary of State's office, will be doing that, per constitutional requirements. But then in addition to that, it's technical assistance and assistance as requested by the commission. And so certainly, if you have an executive director and staff, but, would like to continue using our office as a resource, whether it's connecting with the partner organizations we have across the state for engaging the public in the map drawing, or occasionally asking us questions because we've been working on this whole project for a while. We're absolutely, I would say, it's probably not saying too much to say that we're like thrilled to continue to help and be sort of an advisor as is helpful to all of you. So it's not like the minute you start to hire staff, the Department of State goes away. And that's something that we'll definitely have to have further conversations about with your executive director and with all of you, but don't feel like you're losing all of us with snap of fingers. So I hope that's helpful. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions about that.
Thank you, Sally. I appreciate that. I'm sure we appreciate that.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah. Go, Anthony.
Thank you, Sally, for that information. We all really appreciate it. Just to touch really quick on Dr. Mitchell. Not really much to add. You guys pretty much all said everything that I was going to say. She's one of my top people. I will just say, much in the same way that I think the negative letters might bias us against AMNA, I think we should be cognizant that the positive letters of rec might bias us the other way for Dr. Mitchell. So I think we should all just make sure we're very cognizant of it, because while it is impressive that we have a whole bunch of letters of recommendation from a whole bunch of different fields, I also think that type of thing, it's not too hard to manufacture isn't really the right word, but it's not that hard to send out a whole bunch of emails when you have a prospective job and say, hey, can you put in a letter for me? However, irregardless of the letters, I do think she's a fine candidate. And I just wanted to ask either Sally or Mike Brady, I believe to hire, we need at least one positive vote from Democrat, Republican, and Independent on this commission. So I just want to make sure that was the case.
I don't believe that that's the case. I believe we have to have 7 out of 13 votes to hire. The Republican, Democrat, Independent comes down to the final final drawings, maps, etc.
I might be wrong, but I actually think it's both. I think it's the 7 and at least one of each in those 7, but I might completely be wrong. I just thought that's what I have written down here. So
I see Mike Brady.
Yeah, Mike is off mute. Yeah.
Mike?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. I was just pulling up the Constitution to get the specific language, and I'll be right back with you just to have that right there.
I happen to have it.
Perfect. I was going to say, my understanding fit with Steve, and that it had more to do with there being the process laid out in the Constitution for removing employees, but I don't recall the same language in the Constitution offhand. So again, it had been a little bit of a moment since I looked at that in terms of the hiring of employees. Is what you're saying, Steve?
Yeah.
Yep. Nice to see you all.
I'd be happy to read it. Anthony, would that help you?
No, I trust you. I just want to make sure.
Oh, remember, I'm a lawyer. You can't trust me. Thank you for everybody being on mute. Okay, here's where I see we're at. We've talked about everybody. Do we want to continue talking? Are there other things to be said? Or are we ready to move to a vote to hire somebody? Or do we want to bring somebody back for another interview? I guess I would, I think we can do it this way. I would move that we take a vote on whether or not we want to bring anybody back for a interview. If I have a second, we'll take a vote.
I will second that.
Okay. If you would want to bring one or more persons back for an interview, second interview, signify by saying aye.
Steve, is there discussion on this motion?
There can be discussion on this motion, certainly. Go ahead.
Yeah, personally, I feel comfortable with the due diligence that we've done now, and I would like to, finish this process up. There is a motion on the table, so we'd have to take care of that first. However, what I would suggest is that, maybe we take a preliminary vote to narrow it down to 3, see who's left, see if there's any more discussion on those 3, and then take a final vote for 1. That would be my suggestion. But if y'all feel like we need to bring back candidates, I totally understand that too. I just don't think that's something I need to do at this point.
I would have to agree with Anthony in the essence of us just being more autonomous and believing in the processes that we set up and the committee. I think that we're ready to make some initial decisions today.
Well, kind of the final decision, but Doug,
Yeah, I agree. I think we should go right to the voting. I think we've heard enough from these people to make a decision. One of the ways we could vote is use ranked choice voting, which is basically, let's say you got 4 people, you vote, nobody gets the majority. You drop off the bottom person, re-vote. Drop off the bottom person if necessary and re-vote.
okay, any other discussion? The motion is, do we want to bring back anybody for a second interview? So if you want to bring back somebody for a second interview, raise your hand. I don't see any hands. Anthony, is your hand up?
It is not.
Okay, the motion fails. So we're prepared to move forward. I guess the question becomes, we have basically narrowed it down by my listening and writing down to 4, Jeanette, Cheryl, Sue-Ann, and Brandon. We have kind of eliminated Amna and Vicky.
Steve, I would actually think that it sounds to me that we have a top 2, but I don't know if my listening is different than anyone else's.
Well, there was certainly support for the 4 that I named, and there wasn't much support for the 2 that I named. Cynthia.
I like what Doug proposed about voting because we might not all have the same one person, but if we can get a consensus of who we all felt pretty comfortable with, that might help us move forward.
Agreed.
Okay, so the motion, I'll take that as a motion, Doug, is that we do rank voting. And are we agreed we have 4 people, we're going to vote for 4? Nod your head, thumbs up, do something, okay? So Doug, the way that I understand that this would work is you would vote, your first person you would vote for would be number 1, and then you would have a number 2, a number 3, a number 4. You gotta take.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Doug.
Can't hear you.
Yes, everybody would vote for the 4 people. And then we would rank them by the number of votes they have, drop the bottom person, and then re-vote.
Okay, you're not going to assign, like if my bottom person was, say, Brandon, they didn't get him, you're not going to assign Brandon's vote to the top vote getter.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
We're gonna re-vote. And then whenever we get to 7 votes, then that's
it. Okay.
I think maybe we should ask everybody if they want to do it that way.
Okay, that, I was getting to that.
Okay.
I take that as a motion. Is there a second for Doug's motion for ranked voting?
Can I ask a question first?
Yeah.
Before we second it? Can you explain it? I might be a little slow here. Explain it to me again. Are you saying that we vote on, all of us vote on each person?
No.
Out of the 4?
Let's have a second, and then we can have a discussion, which is what you're asking for.
Okay.
Anthony second.
Okay, now go ahead, Doug. Explain the rank vote.
Yeah. No, we would all, there's 4 candidates. We would all vote for one of the 4. Okay. And so let's say they got,
At the same time.
at the same time. Okay, and then whoever had the least number of votes, we eliminate that person. And now we got 3 left. Now we go back and vote again. And we continue that process until you get somebody that gets 7 votes. Because I believe 7 is what we need to carry something.
Okay, I got it now.
That would be the process, if you want to do it that way.
You might only have 1 vote because there might be 7 votes for one.
Yeah, somebody
7
might
number
come up
1
with-
votes for 1 person.
Yeah, somebody may come up with 7 votes and we're done. Yeah.
Now, the way, since we're all doing this on Zoom, the way I propose that we do it would be, I would say all who would put Jeanette as number 1, and I will go around the room and everybody will tell me number 1. Now that's one way. And then I go around for number 2, number 3, number 4. Or I can go to each person. I can go to Rhonda and say, okay, who's your number 1? Who's your number 2? Who's your number 3? Who's your number 4? Probably be faster that way.
You wouldn't have to do that. You just have to ask who's your number 1. And
No, you gotta have everybody say everyone.
No,
no,
no.
that's not the process that I talked about. Everybody votes for their choice. And
Well,
if you add up, you say Brandon's got 2, Jeanette's got 2, Suzanne's got 3, Dr. Mitchell's got 3. Okay, whoever's on the bottom, we eliminate and revote.
well, that's not how I understand rank voting to work. I would rank my number 1, my number 2, my number 3, my number 4.
Okay, and then what would you do after we did that?
Whoever has the most number 1s proceeds. Whoever has the most number 2s proceeds. Whoever most number 3 proceeds. Whoever the last one, whoever's number 4 has the least votes, drops off.
Okay, we could do that. I think we get the same result.
I'm actually in favor of Doug, the way that you first explained it.
Yeah, I think we're going to need a spreadsheet to do it the way that Stephen is proposing. Because
Sally.
Just a quick suggestion and kind of recommendation, thinking about the folks who are taking the minutes and, you know, us having to write it down. What I'm wondering is if you all just go around and say who your first choice is, I think then the level of complexity by which you have to do saying your second, third, fourth might be more clear. If you go around and there's a fair amount of consensus, then it might only have to be 1 vote essentially, or 2 votes. So we could maybe start with that. And then depending on how much disagreement there is, essentially, we could, adjust because we might have to do a spreadsheet if for the 1, 2, 3, 4 choice, which is how it's done when it's on a ballot. But just because of the sort of nature of this group, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about when I was saying it sounded like there were two main focuses really of the candidates, but yeah.
Okay. Then as I understand what everybody wants to do, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm wrong lots of times, is I would read the first candidate and I'll just say it's Jeanette, and everybody's going to say yay or nay.
Kathleen is raising that there is still a motion on the floor, so that's a good flag.
Well, the motion is that we're going to do rank voting, and we're trying to figure out how that's going to work.
Okay, she wrote it in the chat, so I'm just being observant. Richard?
I don't know, maybe I'm missing something here, but I guess to me the simplest thing is Steve would go around and ask Rhonda, who's your first choice? And then go to the next individual, who is your first choice? We do a total, kind of like what I did at the meeting when we made our comments about the candidates. And then whoever has the most votes, if it's 7, then it's done. If they don't, then we do what Doug said, we drop off the low one and start over. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense to me.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay.
So moved. Or wait, I think that we just clarified the proposal, right?
We clarified how we're going to do it.
Yeah, we did.
Is everybody ready to begin the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Should we vote first just to close the motion? Just in terms of parliamentary procedure.
Sure. All in favor of the ranked voting as we have kind of described it?
Aye.
Say aye.
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 All opposed, say I have some other suggestion. Hearing none. All right, Rhonda, who is your first choice?
Sue Ann.
Doug, who is your first choice?
Sue Ann.
Richard, who is your first choice?
Sue Ann.
MC, who's your first choice?
Cheryl Mitchell.
Aaron, who is your first choice?
Sue Ann.
Cynthia, who is your first choice?
Sue Ann.
Sue Ann?
Yes.
Juanita, who is your first choice?
Cheryl Mitchell, Dr. Cheryl Mitchell.
Janice, who is your first choice?
Dr. Mitchell.
Rebecca, who is your first choice?
Oh, this is such a hard decision.
That's not one of our choices.
I'm gonna go for Dr. Mitchell.
Dustin, who is your first choice?
Sue Ann.
Anthony, who is your first choice?
Janet Phillips.
Who am I missing? Besides me, who am I missing?
Brittany.
Brittany, who's your first choice?
Dr. Mitchell. I didn't get to give my Dr. Mitchell comments, but Dr. Mitchell is my first choice.
I guess I'm the last person to vote, and I vote for Sue Ann. That's 7.
That's 7.
Sue Ann is our potential hire. We don't have to go any further.
Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, I have some 3 additional things that I'd like to talk about if we could, relative to this hire. Let me just list them real quick and then consider if it's worth talking about right now. Number 1, who's going to do the hiring? And I'm assuming that's the Secretary of State because this is a government job. And who's going to notify the other candidates? Second of all, what is the salary that we're going to offer this person? This is coming out of our budget, so I don't think that should be dictated by the state. I think that should be something that we decide on. When we posted the job, we posted the salary range. And so we have to determine how much of that we're going to offer somebody. And then the third thing I had was, what if this person turns down the job? And they could because of the money, they could for a number of reasons. Are we just going to go to our second choice and let the person making the offer go to the second choice, or are we going to come back and re-vote? So those are the 3 items that I think we should discuss before we wrap this.
Those are all very good. I agree. Maybe we can take care of number 1, who hires Sally. Are you still with us?
Go ahead, Mike. You go first.
Good afternoon again. This is Mike Brady with the Michigan Department of State. So Shelley and I can certainly assist this commission anyway. As you know, we're happy to do that. I appreciate very much one of the comments that Doug just made in part of his question about not just the hiring, but more to the point in terms of the negotiation, which I think effectively needs to happen around the salary. And so I think, given it's one thing to extend an offer, it's another thing, to work out the actual logistics of bringing somebody on board, but understanding that this individual, again, you had a lot of competitive candidates. These are folks who I'm sure, are used to at least trying to negotiate within that. There's a range there, but I'm not sure at this point how to divorce whether there's frankly any value in attempting to divorce the extension of the offer from the negotiation of that. And so, again, if it'd be helpful, Sally and I can assist in any way, but I actually wonder, my initial thought would be, as a recommendation, of course, to this commission, would be that perhaps Steve and Brittany as chair and vice chair could be authorized by this commission to negotiate on its behalf in both extending the offer and then negotiating the actual price range. Just as a practical matter, kind of cut to the chase, you set up a phone call, you make the negotiation, you already have the price range there. I think, of course, any further deliberation that you have, that individual, I'm sure will be, is either watching it or will be watching it. And so, to the degree that you want to preserve it as a real negotiation, if you were to say right now, well, I think you offer 50%, but be prepared to go up to 75%. Well, they're going to see that and say, well, actually, I know you're prepared to go up to 75%. So why don't we just do that? So that's not necessarily, again, some of that's just the reality of doing this in the public sector, but just in terms of being mindful of that, as they undoubtedly are, that perhaps one way to address this would be to give, again, it doesn't have to be Steve and Brittany, but it certainly could be, you could take maybe two other people, have, some range of representation across the political affiliations. And I'm not talking about a formal committee. I'm just talking about two individuals authorized to make the negotiation, make the offer and then negotiate that. And as long as it's within the range, it's within the range. And they've got the ability to do that. That's just one offer. Again, reiterate, if there's anything that Sally or I or anyone at the Michigan Department of State can assist with, we stand absolutely ready to assist and serve you.
And Mike?
So,
Yeah, one of the items that I would be uncomfortable with doing it that way would be I would have no idea what the state's benefits are to discuss that. And that's going to come up in the discussion, what benefits are on top of the salary.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. So on that particular point, whoever, if this commission were to, accept either what, what I just proposed, or, some variation thereof, Sally and I can certainly quickly pull that information together and get it to certainly the whole commission, but frankly, the individuals, so authorized there. It's not entirely clear to me, and I think we discussed this, you all discussed this, and I, Sally and I may or may not have chimed in at some point in the earlier stages as you were drafting the job description. It's not entirely clear whether this individual is actually a member of the civil service automatically. This is a short-term engagement by, kind of by definition, given the work of this commission, and then in turn, the work of the person supporting this commission. So you're looking at, definitely a year, more likely a year and a half to 2 years of some sort, kind of other things, conversations that we've all had before. And so just thinking about something like that, perhaps the individual just, maybe you offer them contract, maybe it starts with a question to say, obviously this is not a position that, will go on forever. This is not a commission that will remain, indefinitely. This commission will do its job, it will sunset, and then a new commission will reconvene in 10 years. And so just thinking about all of that, if I were in the shoes of someone making that offer in negotiation, I would probably start after I made the offer with a question again, just to say, in light of the obvious time frame of the work here, do you want a contract? Do you want us to try to, develop a benefits package or other things? And that certainly would, I think, naturally lead to other questions of compensation. Basically, are they getting benefits on their own, or are they taking a different price point and salary because you're providing benefits for them? For as many people as there are, everybody has different thoughts on how they like to handle that, in my experience.
And if I might just add something that I think is really embedded in everything that Mike is saying, but just to put a fine point on it, you all are doing the hiring. The commission is hiring this executive director. It's not the Secretary of State's office who is doing the hiring. It's all of you. And you all are a body of the legislature. Kind of your money is sort of housed and accessible through the legislative council. And my understanding, and not to, I don't know all of the specifics, but my understanding is that because of that, there's slightly different things where somebody might not be a formal member of the civil service or the state, but they might have some access to some of those same benefits because of their position in the legislature in a sort of administrative role. But I just want to underscore which again, I think is embedded in everything Mike is saying, but it's all of you who are doing the hiring. And so we can be helpful and we can, help in terms of both, Mike has done a lot of hiring in state government and elsewhere. We can help be part of that process if that'd be helpful to all of you. But you all, you're in the driver's seat. It's your hire, and this person won't be an employee of the Department of State.
Rhonda.
Okay, it's a two-part question now. When we were first talking about having two members negotiate the pay, once they come to a number, then do they have to come back to us to vote on that since it's going out of our total income? Or is it because there's a range that was set for the job that they just have the okay to just whatever they do? I guess is my question. Once a compromise is made, do we have to vote on that as a group and as a whole?
Richard, well, see if the other comments. Richard.
I just want, if you want to let answer Rhonda's question first, and I just have something that kind of came up here quick, unless you want me to ask it right now.
No, I thought maybe you had a comment on.
Oh, no, I have another question.
Go
ahead, Rhonda.
I would hope that the commission would set a top and a bottom of the range of the salary and allow the whoever's doing the negotiating to be within that range. And if we wanted, if it came in lower, we probably would approve it without too much argument. But if it came in that we needed more, then we would have to come back and say, okay, here's where we're at, and we need your approval.
Okay, I just wanted to know I just wanted to know the logistics of it. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah, the way I would envision it is that when we make the offer, we also make the offer with a salary, and it's a starting point. We did not, the expectation is not for them to come back to us saying, this is what I want. It's for us to say, this is what we're willing to give at this point and see if they take it.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's what we have to determine. Or the people that we delegate this task to have to determine that.
Okay, anybody else? We have a suggestion that we have a couple of people, myself and Brittany. I'm not, my thought was that we would use the chairperson of the subcommittee and then one other person off the board to do that. But I'm open to whatever the group think is on this. Doug.
Yeah, I would expect the entire committee to do this. That's three of us. There's one Republican, one Democrat, one nonpartisan person. And this will bring closure to their assignment as a committee.
I don't have a problem with that. Does that sound to everybody? Cynthia?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, we'll take Juanita.
I just can barely hear you guys. Something happened. My sound popped off, so I can barely hear you.
Well, what's on the table, what's being discussed, not officially on the table, what's on, is that the committee, the subcommittee, the three people on the subcommittee would contact Sue Ann and make an offer of employment. Mike.
Sounds good.
Brady.
Hello again, Mike Brady. If the three members of the committee are meeting, they trigger an open meeting requirement because the committee itself is a public body and they will have quorum. Quorum will be two members of that committee. And so just, something to be mindful of, the question of like deliberation or action or whatever else.
So what you're saying is
there's a way to sidestep that by simply authorizing somebody else to act in that regard.
All right, that was going to be my follow-up. We take it from them and we put it back in the full commission, and if there's two, that takes care of it.
Yeah, and I think you wouldn't want to be too cute about it by having the two people from the commission are also two people from the committee, right?
I'm,
Might be too cute by half.
I was thinking more of Doug and somebody else on the commission. That would make two people and nobody
Sure.
would be in a
Yep. I think that's great.
open meetings problem. Doug, you want to do that?
I can do it. I was not the head of this committee, though.
Who was?
Anthony was. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd
Doug,
be happy to do it.
if you want to do it, you know, you can go ahead. I do not mind. I don't know if Rhonda or Dustin
I would.
like to be a part of that.
Actually, I would. If nobody minded, I really would. But I'm open too, so.
Yeah, I'm open to it as well.
Okay.
Well, that's two people.
I think the point
Rhonda,
that
you
you were
weren't on the
making.
committee, were you?
What's that?
Rhonda, were you on the?
Yes, I was on the committee for the executive director. Correct.
Then we can't have Doug. We need a commission person.
Doug was
Oh,
not.
I was not on the committee.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, Anthony was. Anthony was the chair on the committee.
So we got Doug and
And
Rhonda.
Dustin.
Okay.
Oh, Dustin as well?
No.
No?
I was on the committee.
Oh, you were on the committee. Okay. So it's just Rhonda and myself?
Yeah. Is everybody good with that, or we need a motion? If you're good with it, raise your hand. If you're not, raise your hand. All right. Doug and Rhonda will contact Sue Ann. They'll work with Mike and Sally, putting together a package and go from there.
One last thing, Steve.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay? We have the same party affiliation. Is everybody still okay with that? Or do you, okay, I just want to make sure.
Don't do something crazy.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't know what you could do, but don't do something crazy.
Okay.
Um,
So let me go back, if we're gonna do that, and we'll take Mike's advice on the salary. What should we do if she turns down the job? Should we go to our second choice that we talked about automatically?
Well,
And then inform the commission or come back here?
I think we got to come back. I mean, that's just mine, because
All right.
I think we've got several good people and people can have changed their mind in this matter. And so I would want to come back.
Okay.
That's me. I mean, what does everybody else think? Come back for a second small mini discussion? Okay. And you're going to put together the package. That answers all your questions, I think, that we can do right now, Doug.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. Okay, great.
All right. Okay. Unless we have something further on this, we're up to number one, we're up to time to quit. We have another half hour if we want to take it to discuss initially the General Counsel Committee report. Oh, Richard, you did have something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think I know the answer to the question, but just since we're hiring 3 people, and according to Sally, that's our job. What if we decide one of the individuals we do not like is not doing the job that we expect? Are we able to release them and hire somebody else?
Yeah, there's a procedure actually in the amendment that provides how you get rid of somebody. And that one does take a Republican and a Democrat, and I had it all, but probably an independent. Well, no, it still takes 7 votes, but it has to be a Democrat and a Republican in that 7 too. So yes, there's a way to get rid of them. All right. What's everybody's pleasure? Do we want to keep going, or do we want to adjourn?
Do we, for the record, do we need like a final tally of who everyone voted for, or are we good?
The final tally, I can give you the final tally. Final tally was 7 for Sue Ann, 5 for Cheryl, and 1 for Jeanette. And I'm sure somebody was on the support staff was taking count.
Yes,
Sally
we've got it.
said yes. I further assume that she took count of who voted for whom.
Steve, we did some good work today. I know I'm emotionally exhausted. I would move to adjourn.
You got bread in the oven or what?
No, I got emotional care that I need to give myself.
Are you making a motion?
I am. I'm moving to adjourn.
I second.
Rhonda seconds. Okay.
Can I make a comment?
It's debatable. Go ahead.
I think our time is so limited with us getting together. I think we should just continue on. Because it's just difficult to get all the support staff involved to make these things happen.
Well, there's that's one speech against adjourning. Rhonda?
Doug, are you talking moving on with more discussion on the executive director or on to the council? Because that's probably going to be pretty time consuming in itself. And I would hate to cut that off partway.
On the general counsel, yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask a question before I decide how I want to vote. Does the committee have a short list put together?
Of people?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I wanted to do today was give you a summary of what the process and methodology is that we used. Indicate who is on our short list and why we chose those people.
Well, since we have a lot of people that would like to leave, can we just get the list, the short list, and then everybody have a chance to look at them before we talk about them the next time?
Sure, I can give you the names right now. Actually, the names were in the write-up that was shown at the beginning of the meeting. We'll get into why we only have 2 people, but we've got 2 people on the short list.
Okay.
One is Julianne Pastula.
You want to spell all that?
Julianne, Julianne, Pastula, Pastula. And I'll get over this next page so I can spell this one too. The second candidate that we've selected for the shortlist is James Lancaster. James, James, and Lancaster, Lancaster.
Okay.
And we can get into the methodology we used and why we chose those people next meeting if you'd like.
All right. Unless there's further discussion on the motion to adjourn, we've got the short list down. And all in favor of adjourning, raise your hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt here, just really quickly. So sorry, Chair Lett, but I wanted to maybe suggest that the committee for communications and outreach also told you all their short list so that everyone comes to the meeting on Thursday prepared to discuss both sets of candidates.
Very good. Yes, that would be
Great.
good. So who's the chairperson of the outreach?
I am.
Juanita?
I am. Yes.
Okay. How many are on your short list?
We have 8.
Okay, go ahead. Read them off.
We have, let me get my glasses. We have Janet Lepson, Brenda Kerfoot.
Who?
Brenda L. Kerfoot. Carrie D. Esposito. Bill Froelich. Cynthia.
That's not the list that I have. Maybe the Secretary of State's office could give the list because they were taking notes.
I'd be happy to. Juanita, would that be helpful?
No, I thought we decided 8. 3 3 and
We do.
2, or 3,
Yeah,
3,
we
3.
do.
It was really 3, 3, and 2 people. So it was 8. But yes, you can go on and give it.
There's 8 in your minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was calling on.
Yep. Sally, I think you should say who you got. I mean, I have them wrote down too, and I don't have the last one that she said.
Okay. So the 8 that that we have from the minutes from the meeting are Janet Lebson, Sonia Howell, Michael Kroll,
Yeah,
Brenda Kerfoot,
yeah.
Edward Woods, Andrea Taylor, Amy Hybels, and Bill Freilich.
Correction on my part. I did not have the Woods guy. What's his name?
Edward Woods.
I didn't have Edward Woods nowhere, so I couldn't even read up on him. I didn't have it in my package. But I know we discussed it. But I couldn't find it when I looked through my paperwork. I've never found it.
Okay, we have listed the short list on outreach and the short list on general counsel. All in favor now on the motion to adjourn, raise your hand. All opposed to adjourning, raise your hand. Anthony, which did you do?
We can adjourn.
All right. We are adjourned. We'll see everybody Thursday, I believe.
There's a good possibility that I will not be able to make.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, Dust.
Oh, I was gonna. There's a very good chance that I will not be able to attend the whole meeting on either Thursday or Friday due to work. We have a lot of people that have called off, and we're kind of short-staffed currently. So,
Okay,
let's see what I can do.
New meeting Thursday, sign in by 11:45. Thank you, everyone. Good work today.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.